Years have passed and the animals' lives are more miserable than ever. No animal has actually reached retirement, but the pigs are more content and fatter than they've ever been. Napoleon was now a mature boar of 24 stone. Squealer was so fat that he could, with difficulty, see out of his eyes. The farm has become richer than ever without actually making the lives of the animals any better. Somehow it seemed as though the farm had grown richer without making the animals themselves any richer. Except, of course, for the pigs and the dogs. The windmill has been completed, but rather than providing luxuries for the animals, it is used for milling corn, which generates a great deal of income for the pigs. But the luxuries of which Snowball had once taught the animals to dream, the stalls with electric light and hot and cold water, and the 3-day week, were no longer talked about. Napoleon had denounced such ideas as contrary to the spirit of animalism. The truest happiness, he said, lay in working hard and living frugally. The older animals can't remember whether or not they're better or worse off than they were under Farmer Jones. Squealer's figures keep telling them that their lives are getting better and better. The animals continue to take great pride in the fact that theirs is the only farm in England owned and run by animals. It might be that their lives were hard, and that not all of their hopes have been fulfilled. If they went hungry, it was not from feeding the tyrannical human beings. If they worked hard, at least they worked for themselves. No creature among them went upon 2 legs. No creature called any other creature master. All animals were equal. One day the pigs emerged from the farmhouse walking on 2 legs and carrying whips in their trotters. The sheep mindlessly bleating, 4 legs good, 2 legs better. When Benjamin and Clover go to the barn, they find that the final commandment has been changed to, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. In the closing scene of the novel, the animals peer into the farmhouse window where they see the pigs entertaining Mr. Pilkington, who notes that he's impressed that the animals on the farm do more work and receive less food than any animals in the country. Napoleon declares that from now on the hoof and horn will be removed from the flag and the farm's name will be changed back to Manor Farm. An argument breaks out, and in the last sentence of the novel, the animals are unable to distinguish pigs from humans. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which. The final chapter of the novel emphasises Orwell's disillusionment with the revolution in Russia and the dictatorship that followed. Although life under Farmer Jones was brutal and short, the animals' lives become much more miserable under the rule of Napoleon. In the end, the pigs who walk on their hind legs and carry whips in their trotters are indistinguishable from humans. But as I've said throughout this series, we're still reading Animal Farm because it's about more than just the Soviet Union. It's a cautionary tale about not letting democracy and equality slip through our fingers. It's about Orwell's desire for a society of free and equal human beings. It's about greed and corruption and holding our elected officials to account. It's about preserving our freedom and civil liberties. It's about working together for the welfare and betterment of all. And it's about the price of being passive and not becoming involved in politics. And now it's time to have a bit more of a casual chat about Chapter 10 of Animal Farm. I hope you've got a pen. I hope you've got a highlighter to mark those important quotes and to annotate the text with your thoughts as we go through. I guess one of the things that I find most upsetting about Chapter 10 is the way that it begins with this description of many of the animals who've died, and they've all but forgotten the revolution. Only Benjamin, poor Benjamin, who lost his best friend, only Benjamin was much the same as ever, except for being a little greyer about the muzzle, and since Boxer's death, more morose and taciturn than ever. And one of the phrases that I've underlined there is the phrase dim tradition. So the animals have completely forgotten, basically, the revolution and what it meant and the type of world that they were striving for. And of course, life for the animals has continued to get worse. It's improved for the dogs and it's improved for the pigs. But all those luxuries which Snowball had once taught the animals to dream, the stalls with electric light and the hot and cold water and the 3-day week, were no longer talked about. Napoleon denounced such ideas as contrary to the spirit of animalism. The truest happiness, he said, lay in working hard and living frugally. And that idea that the pigs not only corrupt old Major's vision, but also use it as a justification for the poor, squalid existence that the animals are living. It seems incredibly perverse. And of course, the pigs have installed themselves as this useless leading class who really do nothing apart from files, reports, minutes, and memoranda. And what I find really interesting about this is this particular quote. Neither the pigs nor the dogs produced any food by their own labour, and there were very many of them, and their appetites were always good. That idea that Farmer Jones didn't really produce anything by himself, and neither do the pigs and the dogs in the end. And Benjamin, by this chapter, seems to have resigned himself to his cynical ways. Only Benjamin professed to remember every detail of his long life, and to know that things never had been, nor could ever be, much better or much worse. Hunger, hardship, and disappointment being, so he said, the unalterable laws of life. Of course, they're the unalterable laws of life if you never try to do anything to improve things. And this whole section really ends with this quote that says, no creature among them went upon 2 legs, no creature called any other creature master. All animals were equal. And this very cruel turnaround that occurs straight after this, where the pigs walk out of the farmhouse on 2 legs. And what I find interesting here is the moment where Napoleon walks out. And finally, there was a tremendous baying of dogs and a shrill crowing from the black cockerel, and out came Napoleon himself, majestically upright, casting haughty glances from side to side, and with his dogs gambling round him. He carried a whip in his trotter. What I also find interesting about this is the reaction of the animals. They're amazed, terrified, huddling. And there's very little difference between their reaction to Napoleon here and the way they used to react to Farmer Jones. And of course, one of the cruelest ironies in this chapter, in the end of the book, where the sheep start bleating, 4 legs good, 2 legs better. And by the end of the novel, that single commandment on the side of the barn, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. The pigs are walking around with whips in their trotters. Napoleon is walking around with a pipe in his mouth, and he's wearing Mr. Jones' clothes. So what I find very interesting about the end of this is the way that every trace of the rebellion is gone. They stop calling each other comrade, and there had also been a very strange custom, whose origin was unknown, of marching every Sunday morning past a boar's skull, which was nailed to a post in the garden. This too would be suppressed, and the skull had already been buried. They changed the flag, they changed the name of the farm back to Manor Farm, and finally, the very last paragraph of the book. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all alike. No question now what had happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which. Let's do some writing. Now I'm going to ask you to write an essay on the novel. You can choose from one of the following topics. In the end, there is little difference between Napoleon and Farmer Jones. Do you agree? Although Squealer could turn black into white, propaganda is not the only way that Napoleon controls the animals. Discuss. And Animal Farm is actually a novel about the worst of human nature. Do you agree? Before you get started with this essay, I'd like you to break down the topic by highlighting key terms and writing a plan. This typically involves deciding on 3 main points that you'll develop in the body of your essay. With the third topic, for example, you might decide that the 3 attributes you want to discuss include ignorance, greed, and passivity. In your plan, you'd find scenes, quotes, characters, and examples that you could use to support a discussion of these ideas. The introduction to a text essay should include a discussion of the topic and whether you agree with it or not, and the main points that you're going to discuss in the body of your essay. Every paragraph in the body of your essay should be written using Teal structure. Begin with a topic sentence that explains the idea you're about to discuss and how it relates to the topic. Go on to explain the ideas. Support your discussion with close reference to the events, characters, and scenes from the novel. Along the way, you can support your discussion by using short quotations from the book in sentences of your own. At the end, restate your ideas in a final paragraph that brings your discussion to a resounding and convincing conclusion. That's it for Chapter 10 and Animal Farm as a whole. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion of the novel. Thanks for watching.